Hi everybody, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to talk yet again about finding an entry-level IT job. So this video is brought about by an email that I got from somebody who was out in Baltimore, if memory serves, and they were a bit frustrated trying to find a help desk or an entry-level IT position. Now, unfortunately, I can't seem to find that email. I don't know what happened to it, but I remember getting it, and it was about 2 weeks or so ago, maybe. And I was just been a little bit busy, haven't been able to respond to it, and then unfortunately, I can't seem to find it. Um, but figured I would kind of generally go over the ideas that I talked about in a couple of my other videos again. And if you haven't watched those earlier, I'll put those in the description of this one, where I break down a couple of people's resumes. I go looking at specific job posts and try to reverse engineer a resume based on sort of what people are looking for. So in the bit that I do remember, and unfortunately this is not going to be um, too crystallized in my mind. I read it, I was doing other kind of stuff, and then tended to get back to it. But again, sorry, I seem to lost it. But memory serves that the person who wrote the email had recently graduated from college. I don't know if that's a 2 year or a 4 year or what kind of degree that is, but they graduated from college. I'm gonna assume probably a 2 year, just because entry level position. Um, but I could be wrong, right? So a lot of times if you have a 4 year degree in computer science or MIS, you'd be looking at more, it's still a junior position, but junior position in a slightly higher level, right? Um, yeah. So college degree, living in Baltimore, having a hard time finding an entry level position, feeling very frustrated. And so the first piece of advice that I want to give you, and this goes for anybody looking for work, regardless of level, whether this is entry level, whether this is something that you're senior, whether you've been doing for years, you're out of work, or you're working a job that you don't like. Maybe it's not enough hours or whatever it is, right? So you're looking for a job. It's very easy to get depressed if you are continuously looking and you are not finding a job. So one of the pieces advice that I will give you that doesn't necessarily go directly to the idea of getting the job itself, but it's to find another hobby to occupy your time. Now, if you already have an existing hobby, great. Make sure you're doing that. If you don't have an existing hobby, try to go find something. Um, Most of the country, I live in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it's not really true here because we're a very expensive market for everything. But most of the country, you can find some kind of martial arts classes in your area for a fairly reasonable price. So even if you're not working now, you could probably scrape together to do karate classes or taekwondo or Muay Thai or boxing or whatever it is. Maybe less boxing, but martial arts generally in your area, probably fairly inexpensively. And if that's not your deal, great, don't do that. Um, but anything, right? There's plenty of free hobbies out there that you could go find. So find a free hobby that is not directly related to work on the field that you want to get into, and have that be some time that you can spend, preferably every day if you can, at least maybe a couple times a week, maybe 3 days a week, where you get out of the house, you're going to be spending time, and hopefully it's something that is rigorous enough that you will not be able to be thinking about the fact that you don't have a job right now, right? And I find that to be very, very useful in combating, um, you know, the sort of stress of looking for work. Not only that, if you're doing something like martial arts, or if you're doing something like going to a hack space, where you're building electronics, or you're going to an art class or whatever it is, it's generally going to be people that are goal oriented. And goal oriented people are usually fairly successful. So, despite the fact, and don't go into it looking for this, but despite the fact that it's not necessarily something you're doing for networking, it can be useful for networking. So, that's a side thing. Anyway, kind of getting into some other stuff. I'm going to go share out my monitor right now. And so this is a couple different pages that I have pulled up. And the first one is volunteermatch.org. That's volunteermatch.org. I'll put this in the notes below the episode as well. And I'm not going to go log in here because it seems to require you to log in. I think that's probably a reasonable idea if they're trying to set up volunteers with folks. You know, want to want to vet who you are before you're allowed to, look at volunteering kind of things with with children or something like that. But the idea is, one of the things that you'll see is that if you're having a hard time looking for your first entry level position, a lot of times it's because you don't have any experience. So one of the easiest ways to get experience is by volunteering. It's also a very good way to do networking, and networking is very useful with this stuff. So look for things that you can do that mimic what you would do in IT and help desk if that's your goal, right? Try to find positions where you can help people with computer issues, and there'll be plenty of organizations that'll have things like that, or tutor people with computer issues, right? So that's another thing you can do. You can go help maybe folks who are a little bit older or not as tech savvy, to use their computer. And, you can do that with volunteering. And who knows, maybe that may lead into a paid business that you can do as sort of a side hustle until you get a full-time job. And that's also stuff you can put on your resume. So that's the first thing. Additionally, just like with hobbies, let's say you're, going to a food bank and you're helping people. Well, there's a good chance that you'll meet people that, you know, may know somebody who works at a company, or they own a company, or they have a job, and they can sort of try to help you in, because you're establishing some bona fides that you're a good person, right? Now, obviously they don't know what your motivation are, but they know that you're showing up and doing some volunteer work. You're probably not the worst person in the world. And if you're looking for somebody to maybe fill a position, or maybe there's, you know you don't really like have a position per se, but you notice they probably could use some more folks in help desk. Maybe you end up being that person because you're showing evidence that you're a good person. Also, I pulled up Craigslist. So Craigslist is usually my go-to for sort of entry level stuff. And I pulled just a couple different kind of sections up. So this is the main Baltimore kind of page. If you go look over here under the job section, there's a couple different pieces. There's system and network, software QA, and then a bunch of other ones that you'll go see. But technical support is one of them. And then underneath gigs also, there is a computer section. So I'm going to go open that up in a tab as well. So first, I'm going to go to tech support. So there's actually quite a few tech support positions here. Now, if we look at the dates around this, though, it looks a little bit worse. And also, if we scroll down, all of a sudden, it doesn't look so good. So we see some from Virginia Beach, and that's going back to May 31st. I'm recording this on the 1st of July. So basically, for June, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 job postings for tech support, or at least in this tech support category, right? So that's not a lot. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go look at systems and networking, right? So we're going to go look at systems engineer, application engineer, various different these. You will not necessarily qualify for these, right? But there are at least a couple positions you can go look at. Right? But the point is that this is not looking so great so far. Here we go look at computer gigs, and then we can see that there are some gig jobs, but again, not a huge amount that you can go see here. So that's not great. So let's go take a look at maps. Right? So I'm just going to go pull up maps.google.com, and I'm going to go ahead and punch in Baltimore, Maryland. Right. So you can see that we get Baltimore, and then we get the sort of surrounding areas, right? So if I go scroll out a little bit, there's a couple different things that are worth sort of looking at. Scroll out here, right? So one of them is that Washington, D.C. is a bit of a ways away, but it's not like crazy far away. Additionally, there's Wilmington over here. So let's actually go say, for example, if I wanted to go to DC, right? Let me do Baltimore, Maryland to Washington DC. Right, so let's see how far that is. Right. So that's 50 minutes. That's pretty far, but that's not out of the realm of possibility. And then also, if we go sort of look at the surrounding areas, if we go look at Annapolis, well, all right. So let's put in Annapolis instead. So we look at Annapolis. That's about 30 minutes away. Right. So obviously, if you're taking public transit, something like that, it's going to be a little bit longer. And this is right now, so it may be longer during rush hour. But the idea is that's probably within your area of where you're going to be looking, right? So that's right now you're looking in Baltimore, but Annapolis is not so far away that you would probably want to put that completely out of your realm of possibility. Additionally, there's the Baltimore Washington International Airport, right? So that's another really useful kind of thing that you have. Hospitals, airports, places like that, local government. If you're looking for an entry level position, those are always really good sites to go look at. So the airport may not be posting, things for job postings on, Craigslist, but if we go look for Baltimore International Airport jobs, so you can see that we get the bwiairport.com, and then we actually have there's probably some pets with drinks to and from flying with us contact. Um, I bet there's a job thing here somewhere. If you go look, if you spend enough time looking around. Jobs and contracting. So if we go look at this, you can see that there's marylandaviation.com and mwajobs.maryland.com. So let's go look at those. And we can go see these. So, yeah, so these are the pages that you can go look for jobs. So we go ahead and find a job. We can go ahead and look at the jobs that are available. And you could go through and search for this, right? So let's say tech. So you can see there's a bunch of different things that are sort of listed on here. So this might be a place to go look at for these. Now, maintenance technician, I don't know if that would probably maybe help desk. You have to go look for this a little more. But the idea is this is a place where you might not necessarily think of to go immediately, that you could check. Likewise, big hospitals, just government agencies themselves, things like internet service providers. So if you get like a Comcast or a Time Warner or Verizon in your area, you could go ahead and look at, maybe seeing if they have positions. The idea is sort of look for places that might not be obvious, and then try to go build your resume that way. So, like for example, if you're somebody who's going to houses and setting up cable modems, that's not help desk per se, but it's something you can put on your resume that's tech related. If you then go, and also it's like money coming in, right? So that's obviously important. So it's going to be something that you're probably going to be good at because you're technical. It's probably pretty easy, just crimping cables and stuff like that. But you could do something like that. So that's another thing you can go look at. So look for those kind of jobs. But also let's go back to Craigslist and let's go look at Annapolis. So if I go click on Annapolis and then I go ahead and look at jobs, let me go close out these other ones here. If I go scroll down and I go look at tech support, systems network, and computer gigs, right? So we're going to go ahead and see not as many more as I was expecting, but support. Yeah, all right. So I was sort of expecting some more there, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like the case. You might need to go expand your scope to Washington D.C. But my point is that Baltimore may not be the best market, and I know that a lot of things might keep you in Baltimore. You might have family there, you might have obligations, that you might just be you might have to live there. But if that's not the case, one of the things you might want to go do is expand the scope, right? So, for example, if you can write code, right, and I know this may not necessarily apply to you, but if you can write code, if you're somebody who can, basically have a junior level software dev competence, and you can go on YouTube and you can watch a bunch of developer interviews, that people post, and you can go through those exercises. You're familiar with basic bubble sort algorithms and stuff like that, and you move to Silicon Valley, right? You can find a job, right? You'll have a job like that. If same thing if you move to, any major tech location, right? The idea is that different places are going to have different levels of supply and different levels of demand. And if you move to somewhere that's very tech centric, you're going to have a lot of different jobs. If Baltimore, and I don't know a huge amount of Baltimore, so if I'm speaking out of turn, my apologies. But my understanding is that the economy in Baltimore is a bit depressed. So it's not the nicest city in the world in terms of economic opportunity, right? That's not saying that's not beautiful or that the people there aren't great or whatever. But the only things I've heard about it is that the economy there is not necessarily the best, or at least it's sort of divided, right? So if that's the case, maybe look somewhere else. Um, Washington D.C. There's going to be a ton of jobs. There's the amount of government jobs that are going to be out there, or contracting job, things like that. Same thing. If I didn't find them here with Annapolis, but that's because I was looking on Craigslist. I bet you that with all the stuff going on there with the Navy, if you found yourself a defense contractor, they're probably going to need junior level people. And as long as you're somebody who, is willing to and can pass a background check, no crazy criminal activity, things like that, there's a good chance you can get a junior level position at a contracting firm. I was out at an Air Force base not too recently, a couple months ago, yeah, a few months back, and met a really nice guy who was basically just responsible for the lab environment for that base, right? So they had a whole bunch of classrooms they used for on-site training. They needed somebody to go set up the machines, and they're not going to just have like an airman do that. So they hire a contractor, and that contractor that in turns hires a whole bunch of people for all sorts of miscellaneous activities. That was one of them. So that could be a route that you could go as well. And honestly, there's a lot of career opportunity if you look at an intersect of tech and defense. I spent a lot of time working with people from, Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Boeing, and, you know, there's a ton of them, big defense companies. And, they always need people. And if you can get into that ecosystem and you can get yourself clearance, that's a pretty good way to potentially go. So, also, the last thing that I wanted to mention is that early on in your career, and this is something that people debate, but my personal opinion is early in your career, certifications are very, very valuable. The further you go in your career, the more and more debatable it is whether they have value or not, and it also depends on specifically what certifications you're looking at getting. But very early on, a MCSE, a a Linux certification, whether that's LPI or that's a Red Hat certification. Those kind of things are really useful. A basic networking certification, those kind of base level certifications. Each one is probably going to take you a month or two to study for and potentially pass. Um, those are really, really useful when you're trying to get into the market. It just gives you those qualifications because a lot of times it's human resources people and they're just looking down a checklist. So the more things you can go ahead and give them tick boxes they can fill out, the better off you are. So hopefully that helps. go back and look at some of the other videos that I put out previously. Um, there's going to be the ones where you go look at reverse engineering positions. In order to do that, you need to find some positions. So that looks like that's going to be potentially a tough thing in Baltimore, at least right now. The other thing you can go do is try to just look for big organizations and companies and just cold call them. Ask to talk to human resources and ask if they are hiring for any help desk positions or entry level positions. And if they say no, ask them if they know of anybody who might be. And also use your social networking. So go on like things like Facebook, um, go through your list of friends. Let's say you have 100 friends. You could ask each one of them, just go on their Facebook page, look at where they work, and ask them if they know of anybody who might be, hiring for, an entry level IT position. Might work, might not, but might work. So I think the idea is that if you're in one of those markets where it's a little bit more difficult to find those jobs, you're gonna have to hit the networking, and then you're gonna have to sort of try to go figure out some creative ways to look for stuff. And then lastly, you might have to move, um, or it's going to take you longer to find it. You'll find it eventually, especially if you keep building up your credentials, your qualifications, your experience, doing those things like volunteering, getting out there, doing a little bit of consulting work, maybe with just kind of basic computer fix it stuff. You'll get there eventually, but keep your head up, and good luck to you. So watch some of those other videos and hopefully that plus this one will sort of help. So take care.